One believer who saw this issue of the Kulturkampf coming and how it would play out in the sphere of education was the Oxford Don C.S. Lewis. We mostly remember him for his classic book, The Screwtape Letters, which I urge every young believer to read. But he wrote other books, which were almost like creedal apologies, Mere Christianity, and so forth. However, other than The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and the Chronicles of Narnia type of literature that he wrote, there was one book he wrote dealing with this very issue of the Kulturkampf and how it was going to impact and be impacted by the educational systems. The book is called The Abolition of Man. That book is well worth reading. Another person who saw this coming way back in the 1960s and 70s was Dr. Francis Schaeffer. Unfortunately, his renegade son is not a believer, attacks his father, but his parents were godly people indeed. Francis Schaeffer, from the Brief Fellowship, did a film series, which you can still obtain, and a book series called How Then Should We Live? How Then Should We Live? Where he just looks at the history of the church and keeps pointing back to Scripture. He does this not just from a theological perspective, but from a philosophical and practical perspective. How then should we live? There were people who saw this Kulturkampf, this culture war you described coming, and they saw how it was going to be played out in this field of education, universities, schools. C.S. Lewis would be one. Francis Schaeffer would be another. I wish more people had read their books. When I did, way back when, everything they said has played out almost precisely along the lines they said it would. But more than that, they gave a sense of direction by pointing back to the biblical premise. Francis Schaeffer and C.S. Lewis. I'm not saying these gentlemen were perfect. None of us are. I'm not saying I always agreed with them. I usually did, however. Well worth the reading.